everyone, it's Dr. Arlene Diamco, the multidimensional MD, here to help wake up medicine and to help more fully address the multidimensional aspects of our health, mind, body, and spirit. We are here for round 2 of our talk on how to incorporate wellness into your business. I'm here with my special guest, Mai Trinh. She's a longtime friend of mine. We met when we were new moms, and so just everything new, very nervous. We're in Alexandria, Virginia. It seems like a world since then, and it really has been. Time has just flown, and we've done so much since then. I want to tell you a little bit about Mai before we get started. She is the founder of My Health Now, which helps overwhelmed professionals focus on their health without the guilt. Mai teaches on an array of topics, including stress management, chronic disease prevention, gut health, and more. In addition, her corporate webinars have been broadcasted globally. She also offers private counseling sessions on Zoom. And she's really one of the most amazing speakers that I know. She's had so many wild adventures, and she's also the queen of statistics, but in a way that makes statistics fascinating. And this is what really helps capture her corporate and audience and businesses, that she can take like public health stuff and make it interesting to you and so compelling that you want to take charge of your own health. So welcome, Mai.
Thank you for having me, Arlene.
And you know, since I introduced you as a queen of statistics, do you have any favorite statistics to start off with?
I do. So I was just reading the latest statistic from the American Psychological Association. And of course, it said that over 78% of Americans are really very stressed out about the pandemic. That's not surprising.
Well, yes.
They follow up with 60% of Americans feeling completely overwhelmed from the stress. So you are not alone out there if you have crippling overwhelm, but there's so much we can do, especially in business.
And as a business, how can you start to address staff stress? Like, what do you do? This is such a common question that I get.
The first thing is to make connection. So even though we're not physically together, I feel like I'm in a room with you right now, Arlene, right? So the first thing is to ask, just to have those conversations with your staff. How are you doing? That's the first question. And then when you have those personal conversations, if you notice a common thread where people are saying, I'm not sleeping, or I'm drinking too much, or I'm having a really hard time with work-life balance. If you notice a theme, you start with an anonymous survey so that they feel safe. And then once you have the anonymous survey and you see points of stressors, you address them by getting the help. The corporate speakers that can come into your company and give them tools.
So it starts out very
with
simple.
a conversation.
You don't know, you ask and start a conversation. So what if that conversation's all over the place? Like you ask, and then your employees just feel flattened. Their stress is like all over the place. You can't figure out any overarching theme. What do you do then?
So what you do is you really hone in to the word overwhelm, right? In these areas of your life in overwhelm, rate from 1 to 5, 5 being the highest number of overwhelm, 1 being the least. Where do you rate sleep, work-life balance, stress from COVID, fear of getting sick? And you do a list, and then that way you can quantify what are the biggest issues.
You could just use like SurveyMonkey or something like that to get a poll. And I mean, for me, I'm thinking like this would actually be interesting for me to send a poll out to my patients and see like what over of the ones that I don't see one-on-one, like what are the themes and which are the ones that are like creating the most overwhelm. So that's really interesting. So then after that, how do you start? Say, okay, these are the main things that my staff, my employees are concerned about, or my colleagues. Then what do you do? Like, how do you start integrating wellness into the business?
You start with what resources you already have, right? You don't want to reinvent the wheel. So if you're a large company, you start speaking to your health insurance account manager and say, hey, what programs do you have with stress management, with sleeping, with nutrition? So that's a big one. A lot of people have gained 19 pounds in COVID-19, right? Mm-hmm. And you see what resources they have and what speakers they can come in. A lot of times right now, it's just corporate webinars. You talk to your employment assistance program. A lot of big companies have that. Mm-hmm. And you say, what resources do you have on these 3 topics? So if you have 5 topics in your survey, you really focus on the top 3. And then you look what resources that are already there within your business that you can bring in to your employee health program.
And this is like if you're not the one responsible for creating that program. This is more if you are working for a business and if you're trying to figure out like, hey, what's available already for me that I can access. But to create that culture of wellness in the business, how does that happen?
So it was interesting because I read a study lately about effective corporate wellness, and it really starts with the top up and the top down. So upper management has to be a team player and show that they're completely on board with employee health by showing up at the webinars, by doing the introduction, by giving incentives to their employees to show up for these webinars. You can have all the webinars in the world, but if there's no incentive or no buy-in from upper management, employees might feel penalized. Like, hey, I'm working by the hour, right? I need to take care of my work because we're not even working in a physical space. So the management has to be an example. And they have to show their employees, we care about you. And the win-win for the management is, let's be real, health insurance costs cripples small businesses and big businesses. So it's in their advantage to have a healthy employee workforce.
Uh-huh. And, a couple of things I think about just from that is like, one, what are the incentives that actually are helpful? And 2, do people feel embarrassed or ashamed to kind of come forward and to, seek better health?
So
is that admitting that they're not in good health? Like what is that like?
So what I found is a lot of companies have wellness kickoffs, right? Where this is very common. They have a passport for the employees to show up for these wellness initiatives. And then they have a prize. So it might be, we have an 8-week good sleep hygiene initiative where everyone wears a Fitbit, monitors their sleep, logs in, and the person who had the most consistent sleep gets a $50 gift certificate to Whole Foods. And I found that creates a community because even if we're not physically together, we can still make community. I know you said that, in the time of COVID, Arlene, you have made community with the wellness community in a profound way.
I've met so many people, so many great professionals, physicians, people in the medical wellness sphere that I would not have met. But because I was here and we had to meet people virtually, it just opened up all these doors of like, well, yeah, let's schedule all these meetings with people kind of from all over the world, which I wouldn't necessarily have had room for or time and space to have met. And so, you can build community virtually.
And so that's really important for companies to realize when they want to focus on employee health, because with the APA reporting that 60% of Americans are so overwhelmed, right? Mm-hmm. Overwhelm causes paralysis. And in the work world, you don't want paralysis. So for companies to keep a safe place for their employers and their employees especially, to feel safe enough to practice self-care, to have those healthy boundaries, to go back to the basics of 7 to 8 hours of sleep, to not over drinking, to signing up for a smoking cessation class. That is really critical. It's keeping a safe place. And that starts with upper management supporting that safe place and participating in it so that their workers can see, oh my gosh, you know, the managing director is here and she's telling her story of kids working virtually from home and I'm not alone. That's a big thing right now, having these webinars where people feel like they're not alone. We're all in this together.
Mm-hmm. Are there certain models? I know I hadn't asked you this before, but are there certain companies, I don't know if you can say that seem to have like a solid wellness culture built in?
So it's interesting that you say that. You wouldn't think this was obvious, but I just spoke at a hedge fund in New York, and they have women's health circles where they get speakers twice a month, right? And it's very strong in this company. So there are companies that make it a priority. And I know that DC Superior Courts, before COVID, they had a yoga instructor come in after work. They were on a Weight Watchers management program together. And it really felt like a team spirit. So yes, as long as upper management buys in.
Some of those things are not difficult at all. I mean, just having yoga after work available to you is amazing. You can go home relaxed, have better relationships. Just that supports so much more than just physical health. And so I know those are like bigger companies or larger organizations. What about small businesses?
So small businesses.
What's the difference?
The difference is, with big companies, you create community. With small businesses, you want to create a family atmosphere. Like we're all in this together. It's nourishing. It's small. It's intimate, right? So you can have Zoom calls where you're just touching base with everybody and saying, where's your headspace? Hey, you know what? We're giving everyone $50, a gift certificate, just as a bonus, so you can get online at Whole Foods just to eat healthier, because we're here for you. And that's a big difference, where small companies can really have that intimate feeling, whereas big companies, you have circles, you have pods of community.
Mm-hmm. Are there, like, what other examples are there for the incentives that are like not monetary?
Oh, well, I've seen Vitamix rewards, where if you go and do a nutrition program, at the end, there's a raffle and someone wins a Vitamix or NutriBullet.
One of the best mixers out there, like a Blend Tech, if people don't know.
I'm a Vitamix person, but I've had mine for like 15 years. So there's a lot of incentives for even health counseling. Hey, do these 8 weeks and you get 3 health counseling sessions with a health coach. Or, so there's a lot of incentive that companies do, and they sincerely want their employees to show up because it's in their best interest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely is. Now, what if you're really small, like you are self-employed, you're a contractor or a music teacher? Do we even talk about wellness in business in that, or is it more personal? How do you see that?
So with the solo practitioner or the small business owner, especially in a time like this, where we really see that viruses can shake up our life in a bad way, right? It's really important to have healthy boundaries for both yourself and to pick and vet clients that are going to honor your personal boundaries. So if you come in, so for example, I absolutely adore my children's music teacher. Mm-hmm. So there were times when she called in sick because she was legitimately sick. And it was a win-win for everyone because I didn't want to get sick. So she just rescheduled. I didn't lose, a class with her, but she set her boundaries. I'm not going to go to work when I'm sick. And by the way, I don't want to get you sick. And it was a win for me because we just rescheduled in a time that was beneficial for both of us. So as a small business owner, you have to ask yourself, how am I showing up for myself? And what clients do I work with that have my best interest in mind?
Yeah, it's a mutual respect for each other, which is really, like anything, is based on relationships. So it's good to think of it like that. And you've had so many different stories in the wellness community with organizations. Do you have any other favorite stories?
I do. So in COVID, I've been so fortunate to be able to support public school teachers and staff in a webinar setting. And it's amazing when you set up a safe place for your working staff. And the way I do it is when I teach a seminar, and it's on a webinar platform, much like this. The first thing you say is, hey, please feel free to write in the chat box. But if you do, you have two choices. You can write directly to me and your colleagues will not see what you wrote, or you can share with the group, because I believe that collective wisdom is so powerful. And I then follow up with, and I'm going to be sharing your thoughts. I won't share your name. I won't even say your name, but you're going to see that we're all in this together. So once you establish a safe environment, people open up and they seek help and they get better because they feel the compassion and they feel the collective nourishment that is so important right now in the work world.
And this was a virtual presentation. So this is like during 2020 that to do that. And so that it is possible to feel supported and nourished and connected even in a virtual world, which I mean, for me, I feel like that's so much of the message that this pandemic has brought to us, that we can like go inwards and really like feel who we are, love who we are, all different aspects, and be able to nourish that, to be able to get in touch with our higher self. And to, I mean, it can be challenging, but this is what we are being asked to do right now. And so to be able to see this spark kind of like grow into the wellness in the organizations that you've been helping is amazing.
I've been amazed by how many people have opened up during webinars. You can have a very deep connection on a webinar because ultimately people want to be seen and they want to be heard. So if you're really interested about keeping your workforce healthy and happy, even during these uncertain times, make sure that they feel heard and seen. And so one of the things I really teach in my webinars is practicing mindful listening and self-compassion. That's huge, especially now. This isn't the year to be perfect. In fact, I get away from perfection. This is the year to practice self-compassion and work just towards progress, not perfection.
And self-compassion really translates into compassion for others, but you actually have to have that self-compassion first, to be able to like access this infinite well of like love and compassion for other people. And I think that's so much of what we're doing right now. And even like during COVID, the same thing that you did, I've been able to teach like tension and trauma release classes over Zoom. So that to me is phenomenal because this is a class that I've only taught like in person. I've also been able to teach like lymph pumping classes, even self lymph pumping classes. So this is an osteopathic technique. And I never learned any osteopathic techniques because they're hands-on techniques, not in person. I didn't know it was possible until 2020. So it's really expanding what we can do, what we know of as possible. It's like really like raising that. And really there's like infinite possibilities. We don't know until we try, we just go for it. And it's not to let like the pandemic getting in the way of connection, that we were connecting with each other right now. We're connecting with whoever's watching right now. And we're so loved that you're here with us, because this is a really meaningful part. It's really having to prioritize like what means so much to us, like in business, in life. And this is why it's so important to be addressing this right now.
Another research study that just blows my mind, because this is really at the heart of wellness. So according to the Harvard and Stanford longevity studies, what they found that brought people to an early death wasn't nutrition, although that's important, Wasn't sleep, that's important too. The number one cause of early death and chronic disease is loneliness. So if you are a business out there, foster connection with your employees. That's so important. And you can, I'm speaking to you right now, Arlene. I feel like I'm in the living room or in your office right now. I can see your eyes. I can feel your warmth. And you don't need to be physically here to be present in my life. Mm-hmm. Same with businesses. If anything, COVID taught businesses is we can be just as productive. We don't have to be in the office. And guess what? We can be just as connected in a meaningful way where we don't lead to loneliness. And if your worker is lonely, that's jeopardizing their health. So you have to make sure that they have the information of the employment assistance program, or they can call their health insurance company and they get the help they need.
And this, that connection, that is the spirit part to me of the mind, body, spirit of health. So, and to kind of wrap back around, well, how do you know if people are lonely? It goes back to how do you start? You ask, you start a conversation.
And you practice active listening. And a lot of people don't realize what active listening is. So in my webinars, that's how I start. I say you can start, mindfulness in itself is being present with all of your senses with no judgment towards yourself or the situation. Mm-hmm. And you can practice that with active listening with your colleague over Zoom. You actively listen, you don't try to interrupt them. And there is no judgment towards yourself or others, and you just listen. And that's healing.
It's like being present with whatever is going on, being present with yourself, being present with the other person. So that is so amazing. I mean, what you've been able to do and what is possible. And I think that's a great note to kind of wrap up with is being present, to connect, the mindful listening, to really be able to feel the presence of yourself and another person. And that is a spirit to spirit connection. And you're right. So right. That is healing. And you don't have to feel lonely, even if you are physically alone.
And that can bleed into so many aspects. Blood is vitality. So when I say bleed into, I mean in a wonderful way, not bleed out, right? And so in companies, if you care about your people, number one, really make sure that they feel connected, that they feel you have their back, that they feel compassion. That is going to help their health. And it's going to lower chronic disease. And it doesn't cost a lot of money to have curiosity for the people that you work with.
That's true. Yeah, it's free. Yeah. Compassion and curiosity are free.
Yeah, and it starts with the Survey Monkey. Hey, out of sleep, nutrition, stress management, work-life balance, mental health, what is your number 1, 2, and 3 that you'd like to focus on? We're getting speakers in.
Well, thank you, Mai, for being with us here today. I feel like that's so much useful information to get people started. And always remember, if you don't know where to start, you ask, you start a conversation, you go from there. And when you say, going from top down, whoever's in charge, it's also like that for each of us. It starts, with yourself. If you want to make a shift, make a shift with yourself and choosing to do that, making that intention. So if anyone wanted to connect with you, how could they do that?
That's a great question. So go on my website. It is myhealthnow.com. That's www.myhealthnow. That's M as in Mary, A as in Apple, I as in Igloo, healthnow.com. And then they can go on Facebook. I have a business page where I do bathroom chat with Mai. And it's just easy health tips so you can be healthier and happier. So I would love to connect with you. And Arlene, thank you so much for having me on this program.
I'm so glad that you got to be here. And she, Mai does work with organizations, with businesses, but also one-on-one with individuals and does coaching as well. So yeah, I hope that you do get a chance to get in touch with her. And again, I'm Dr. Arlene DiIanco, the Multidimensional MD. Please like and subscribe. If you'd like to get in touch with me, you can through my website, allworldshealth.com, Instagram, allworldshealth, or Facebook, All Worlds Health and Pediatrics. And I would love to hear from you. Please comment, let us know where you're from. And next week, I will be talking to Mystic Maudy Fowler for another Moment with Maudy. We're going to be talking about renewing through clarity of the mind. And I hope that you'll join us then next Wednesday, January 13th, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it will be recorded in case you don't get a chance to do that. So, and I'm going to timestamp this talk as well, so definitely look down in the details and you will be able to jump to your favorite parts of this talk. So thanks again, Mai, and we will see you all next time. Lots of love to you.